land degradation and the effects of drought. That's what we do, and as you know, it all comes down to land and soil. When everything else is done, it all comes down to land and soil. So when Stephen is presenting these statistics, this is coming from most of this information has come to one of the global assessments that we have, the one that comes from the Intergovernmental Panel on Ecosystem Services and Biodiversity and all that. But there are actually three other more assessments. The World Atlas on Desertification has its own assessment and the results. I'm just finalizing with my colleagues in communications a synopsis of all the reports, and through you, Richard, we will make them, once they've been approved by Pradeep, who was here this morning, we will make them available to you so that you can forward them to the colleagues so that they can see the summaries and what the data is. It's quite alarming. And this affects our very existence, because we only have one planet, not two. We only have one. So if we don't take care of this, it's a problem. And what I also want to say, what comes out of here in this presentation, because I have spent my life doing politics and international negotiations at the UN, this is not a problem for Africa and the developing world as it may seem to be. There was a picture here that you presented about how it impacts on society. And those societies are across the board. And you will see that the consumption patterns of the Western world, where there's a money, because I was amazed. I come from a place where we grow these pineapples and things, but we never have them all year round, bananas and all that, and avocados. But I came to Germany, and most of the European countries have been, it's January to December. That is very worrying to me, because it shows that the consumption actually is here. It is in Europe, but where do we produce these things? I checked, some of them are coming from Chile, and when they've run out of Chile, they've gone to Brazil, and then they were somewhere in Africa. So there is a trade linkage. There is a consumption linkage. And that's why we consider that the UNCCD and the presentation that you hear from Richard now, and then next one that will come from Professor Byron or Dr. Richard Byron-Cox, you will see how these things are linked with sustainable, all the 17, is it 17, right? SDGs that are there. So it's not a question of, it's only their problem because this thing is happening in Asia. No, it's all, we have, it's a common destiny. We have a part to play. So with that, I would like to then introduce my colleague here, Dr. Richard Byron-Cox. Some of you, especially the lecturers, know him, but because he works with the university a lot. But some of you are new students, you don't know him. But Richard is actually someone who has worked for this convention for many years, over 20 years in the United Nations system. I think this was your second duty station in the UN system. But then he got stuck here, and to go personal, he then found his wife here, those type of things. But you know, boys, when they go around, they become adventurous. But he's been here, he's been with the UN system for over 20 years. He is a trained diplomat from one of the best diplomatic schools around the world. He will tell you if he wants to. And then he is a trained lawyer with his PhD in international law from a European university. Richard he's an economist by everything he does. He's a musician, he sings, and he's a writer. He's written a book and lots of peer-reviewed articles. He is everything else that I aspire to be when I grow up. So with not much ado, Richard, I ask you to come, and in the meantime, we will monitor the time, because Baron also has to have his part, and then I'll call Baron to. All right, please, you have the floor, Richard. He's going to speak mostly around the linkages with SDGs of this business. Richard, you have the floor.
Good morning again. Thank you very much, John. You're, as always, very generous to me. Generosity is something that one should always have, and he's a generous man. The thing is this, that you should forget everything else I say except what I'm going to say now. Don't ever forget this as long as you live. Anybody who respects you enough to listen to you for 3 minutes, you must never waste their time. Don't forget that. Anybody who respects you enough to listen to you for 3 minutes, never waste their time. I do not intend to waste your time. Get this straight. Now, it is clear to me, very clear to me, that this world that you live in, and some of you here, I suppose you like sports cars, pretty women, and so on and so forth, and everything else. Something is wrong with that. Some of you like spacecraft too, and some of you want to live on the moon. Well, I have news for you. This is the news I'm going to share with you today. There's something called the Sustainable Development Goals, and you have heard of the United Nations. You're here right now, actually, right? But what does this really mean to you? How is any of this important to you? Well, by the time I'm finished, you might disagree with me. But before you disagree, you have to do 2 things. You have to listen to me and understand me. Because you cannot disagree with something that you don't know and something that you don't understand. So let's proceed. So, the UN adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals, are called the SDGs. The question is why? That is the fundamental question. Why? It's not so much that they adopted them, but why? You know, because it's either they're crazy people, you understand what I'm saying, to just adopt things, or there has to be a reason why. And that's the fundamental question which you must answer. Not who, not when, not where, but why. As a lawyer, that was the first question that bothered me when I went to university to study law. Why? You know? And so they have these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but they went further and they have 169 targets. Now, I just want to look at the first one, which doesn't concern you. Because all of you are rich. This is a rich country. You're only here because you're the privileged few. Don't forget that. But humanity is not the privileged few. Don't forget that. Now, so let's look at the first one, poverty. Right? See that? And let's look at the second one, hunger. And let's look at the third one, health. Just think of that for a moment. There are more, but I just want you to look at those 3. Okay? So there are more. These are the SDGs, 17 in all. Right? And there are 169 targets. I have taken the time to tell you the target, how many targets are in each. But still, the question is why? Why did all of these politicians go about adopting these things? For what reason? Well, let's look. What will tomorrow look like? This is the first question. What will tomorrow look like? You know, development can be defined in many ways, you know, but somehow or the other, we have this thing, especially economists, you know, that growth will continue forever. You understand? And anytime they talk about life these days, all they talk about is growth. So you have people like Richard Quest and so on, and CNN telling you about the markets and up and down and so on and so forth, right? So we are all concerned about growth. We are all concerned about having a nice life, you know, and so on and so forth. But nobody ever concerned themselves with this. There's a price to be paid for it. There's no free lunch. Don't forget that. And those of you who study economics would know something called opportunity costs. Right? If you want to line with your girlfriend tonight, that means you're not going to study. If you're going to go in and drink some rum, you know, in a bar, then you're not going to study. There is an opportunity cost, regardless of how rich you are. You understand? This is the reason why. Because what is the opportunity cost? What is the price do we have to pay? What will tomorrow look like? And you're wondering, why am I talking about tomorrow? Because tomorrow is about you. I have already lived. Tomorrow is about you. Some of you here in your 20s. So, what tomorrow look like? It concerns you. But, okay. Let's forget tomorrow, because tomorrow nobody knows. What about today? Now, at this present stage. Do you know that in 2000, the world did an analysis of the ecology, right? Of what is happening around us in the environment. And listen to this. They found out that 15 out of 24 ecosystems that they studied, right, are already being degraded or used unsustainably. 15 out of the 24 that they studied, they found out that. But listen to this. Listen to this. That the effects are so serious, it affects this. Food production, right? Now, whether you have an SUV or big house on the hill, please believe me, you need to eat or you're going to die. That is the reality, You need to eat or you're going to die. Okay? So this is not something, and whether you're in Germany or you're in South Africa or wherever, you need to eat. But there are two other things that you need to do. And if you don't do those two things, you will also die. But we'll talk about that in a short moment. So let's go on, land and climate. So my argument today is to demonstrate to you how important land is, because that's where I work. That's what he pays me to do. So I'm only trying to secure my salary. You would forgive me, right? But the thing is this, that what I am trying to demonstrate to you is the importance of land to everything. Now let's deal with climate change. Climate change is a change in average weather conditions or in time variation of weather around longer term average conditions. So we know what it is. Now, this is the part I want you to look at here. It says this, all IPCC reports since 2014. You know what the IPCC is? The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. These are all scientists and politicians and so on. And they said that this climate change business is caused by whom? By you. Not me saying that, not me say so, the scientists say so. So don't accuse me of anything. I'm just telling you what they say, right? And this is what they say. And listen to what they said, which Pradeep mentioned earlier, that this carbon sequestration business, right? Much of it is observed where? By vegetation. Note I put that in blue. Okay? Note I put that in blue. So we know now that for sure that this climate change business, if it's not tied to anything else, it is tied to this vegetation business, right? Vegetation is basically plants, right? Growing things. Okay? Let's go on. So the text here is wrong, but the rest is correct. The UNFCCC's text begins like this. Acknowledge the change in the Earth's climate. Look at the convention itself. You know, in Europe, people like to talk about climate change. Climate change is the biggest thing since sliced bread. Mistake. Mistake. Serious mistake. As a matter of fact, it amazes me that people could be so ignorant. People who run the world are so ignorant. It's unbelievable. We're going to fix climate change. But the very first sentence in the convention says what? The earth. What is the earth? Could you tell me? But these people run around, we're going to fix climate change. And I could tell you about the battles that we had. But listen, even though they tell you that they're fixing climate change, look at this. This is the convention, the original convention. Then they have what is called the red process. And the red process deals with what? Look carefully here. You see? But this is climate change we're talking about, We're not talking about land here yet, right? But then you have the Paris Agreement, which Mr. Trump says he doesn't want, right? And in that Paris Agreement, look at what it says. Read it for yourself. What does it all come back to? Something called land. That is what it comes back to. But let me make it simple for you, because I'm not a very bright man. I like to speak in simple terms. So let me make it simple to you. If we agree that vegetation is so important for carbon sequestration, then where do we plant the vegetation? In the sea? In the sky? Where do we plant it? On land. On land. And if the land is no good, would it grow? There goes your climate change business. It's absolutely absurd to think that you could fix climate change without land. It is impossible. It's not me say so. They're the ones themselves who say so. Not me. It's not me saying that. This is not Richard Byron-Cox telling you that. This is them saying it, okay? So we have dealt with climate change. Let's deal with the biodiversity business. Right? Biodiversity is the variety and variability of life on Earth. It's not me saying this. That is them saying this, okay? But when we talk about biodiversity, what are we talking about? All living things, right? Bio just means life. Diversity, difference, right? That's what it means. And look what it covers. This is what it covers. Look at the first word here. What is this word? Plants. Again, where does plants grow? Please tell me. It is amazing that some people want to fix biodiversity, but they don't want to fix land. Absolute rubbish. You wonder if people are really educated. These are great scientists, you know. And let me tell you this. I have been working here for a long time. He said that, right? You know how hard we have to fight for them to agree that something called the GEF. Does anybody know what the GEF is? The Global Environmental Facility. Now, the Global Environmental Facility was basically set up by France, right? France is the one who set it up. It was them. And they said, you know what? This is money to fix climate change. And this is money to fix biodiversity, but no money for land. Because land is an Africa problem. It's a South people problem. It's poor people problem. So we're not going to fix that. Get your own money to fix that. We will fix climate change. And we will fix biodiversity. There's something called the PICs and the POPs. You know what are the POPs? They are persistent organic polluters. And there's an agreement on that. Even before the agreement came into force, they agreed to finance the POPs. But no money for land degradation. You know why? Because it's an Africa problem. It's a black people problem. And that's the facts, you know. You can tell them I say so because it's true. I can prove it. You understand? But let me make this simple for you so that you understand. Let me just make this simple for you. Do you agree with me that biodiversity must live somewhere? And if it has to live somewhere, it must have a habitat, right? And as far as I know, all biodiversity either live in the sea or where? On the land. And if that habitat is destroyed, what happens to the biodiversity? It dies. Again, you cannot fix biodiversity without fixing land. But these bright people from Europe, these most intelligent people tell you, no, we're going to fix biodiversity. And we're going to fix climate change. But forget the land, because land is Africa problem. Absolute dotishness. So that's your first lesson. Whether you want to be like Pavlov's dog, or you want to think for yourself. You know Pavlov's dog? Have you ever heard the story? There was this Russian scientist named Pavlov, and every time he rang a bell, he had a dog, and every time he wanted to feed the dog, he would ring a bell. You understand? And he did it time after time. And it came a point where he could ring the bell and don't feed the dog, but the dog would start to salivate. Right? Because after that bell, the dog knows what is coming? Food. The dog wasn't thinking. It's a conditioned response. And most university students, I'm sorry to tell you, you're just conditioned responses. Are you going to be different? That's the question. Anyway, let's go on. So there's something called the Archie targets, right, on the biodiversity. And these are the basic targets. And if you look at them, they're these groups. But every single group of the targets they want to achieve by 2020, which is next year, every target they want to achieve has something to do with what? Look carefully. Where does production come from? You understand? Look. And you know, plenty of you here, you take off your old shoe, your old shirt, and you throw it somewhere. It ends up in something called a landfill. So even your consumption destroys the land. Think of this. Probably you shaved this morning with a, whatever, one of those throwaway shavers, and you throw it in the garbage bin. Did you think what is going to happen to it? Or probably when you eat your lunch today, you're going to take it out of a piece of plastic, those little plastic balls. Do you think where that is going to go? Oh, you haven't. Welcome to the real world, sweetheart. So, here we go. Now, so why ask of tomorrow? when we can ask it today? Let's go on. This is a reality that you have to face, which is what Stephen was telling you about. This is a reality you cannot ignore. This is what we face. And this is the only land which shows some positive sign, 10%. The rest is basically in trouble. Or the rest is going to be in trouble. And I have just demonstrated to you, that climate change cannot be fixed without land. And I have just demonstrated to you that biodiversity cannot be fixed without land. With this picture, do you think we're really going to fix it? Please tell me. Do you think we're really going to fix it with this picture? I doubt that. I seriously doubt that. But this is the reality that we cannot ignore. Let's go on. So do we need the SDGs? I suppose you could answer that yourself by now, no? But let's look at the concrete reality. Land. 25% highly degraded, 8% moderately degraded, and 36% stable. 18% is there. So we know the land problem. We're talking about the SDGs. We have to fix that. This is biodiversity. Listen to this and do not forget this. Now we lose 3 species an hour to inter alia, urbanization, deforestation, and climate change. By the time you leave here today, 12 species would have disappeared from this planet, never to return. You hear me? This is what it is. Welcome to the real world. This is what it is. This is the reality. So, here we go. Again, look at this. When we're not talking 2050, we're talking 2030. 11 years from now, based on using 2000 as the baseline, we need 50% more food, 45% more energy, and 30% more water. This planet is not elastic, people. You can't stretch it forever. This is not me talking. This is not Richard Byron-Cox. This is the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization, where they have a lot of bright people, a lot of intelligent people, gifted people. And these are the facts and the figures that you have got to face. Now, let's go on. I have argued that land is indispensable to the SDGs, and land is indispensable to the future of this land. Now, you know that there are 17 SDGs with 169 targets. At the goal level, these, right? 76% of them at the goal level cannot be achieved without land. Let us run back very, very quickly, because I want to finally sink it in to you. How are you going to deal with poverty if you don't deal with land? How are you going to deal with hunger if you don't deal with land? How are you going to deal with health? Let me tell you something. I come from a very small island in the Caribbean. It's called Barbados. I was born there. It is one of the most water-scarce countries on this planet. But listen to this. I live in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is next door, because my mommy is from there. It's St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's an archipelago, small one. And the Grenadines Islands are very, very small. And every summer when I was a child, they would have droughts there, every summer. And everything would shut down. Because you couldn't run a school without water. You can't run a hospital without water. You understand what I'm saying? You can't run life without water. Everything, every single year when I was a small child. That's the reality. So how are you going to fix that? You understand? Are you going to have inclusive societies without land? Please tell me, because I would want anybody to explain this to me. I really want anybody to explain this to me. How does all of this work without land? So let's go back to where we were, All of these here, these SDGs, at the goal level cannot be realized without land. Please understand that. And please keep that in your head. So you want to fix climate change, and you want to fix biodiversity, and you want to fix everything else. Let us begin with land. Now, what will happen when this happens? This is where we are today. 7 billion. When I was a boy, the first time I ever heard about the population of the world, it was 3 billion. So in my lifetime, we have added 4 billion. In my lifetime, 4 billion. But listen to this. You know that this is a mistake? Do you know that? It's not right. It's incorrect. And guess why? Because when they made this prognosis, they didn't calculate that China would change its one-child policy. Do you know that China had a one-child policy? But it has changed that policy now. And this calculation, this forecast was made before China changed that one-child policy. So this is a very conservative estimate now. It is. It is. So what will happen when this happens? Think about it for a moment. Remember I showed you a picture about the more food and the more water up to 2030. This is up to 2050. Tell me what you think is going to happen. This is not about me. This is about you. This is not about me. This is about your children. Figure this out for yourself. Now, so a final thought. By any measurement, this planet is in serious trouble. Objectively, the protection and enhancement of land is crucial to its survival. Soils are the best sequesters of carbon. And in any case, where do we plant the trees needed for sequestration? Hegel dialectic. Do you know who's Hegel? William Hegel was one of German's classical philosophers. There were 3 of them basically at that period, the 3 fundamental ones. Immanuel Kant, William Hegel, and one called Feuerbach. And Hegel is the master of dialectics. Everything changes. The question is, will you be the agent of change, or will you just be the victim of change? Because right now you are the victim of change. I'm sorry to tell you, but you are. You understand? So let's go on. Karl Marx said that revolutionary thought begins in a university. For me, Karl Marx is the greatest philosopher of all times. He's also German. And the reason why I think he's the greatest of all time, because of his 11 thesis to Feuerbach, on Feuerbach actually, where he says this: philosophers hitherto have interpreted the world. The challenge is to change it. That's what you're here to do today. You know, whether you like this or not, you're German, you're from Barbados, or you're from the United States, there's one thing we all share in common here, is this planet. Oh, you're rich and you have a lot of money. So what are you going to do? You're going to go and live on the moon. Well, let me tell you something. There's no oxygen on the moon, you know. And there's no food on the moon. And there's no water on the moon. So where are you going to get it from? You have to get it from this planet. There's an American astrophysicist. His name is Carl Sagan. And Carl has correctly said, this is the only planet we know in the universe that can sustain life. There's no other. The choice is yours, you see, as to whether or not you want to seriously understand this. You all study environment. I'm coming to the University of Cologne on the 26th of June, where I would lecture on environmental law underpins your very existence. It's a public lecture. I'm inviting you now. But I'm saying this to you to say this. The question has always been for me whether or not I am going to encourage you to continue on the conveyor belt and be Pavlov's dog, or whether I'm going to ask you to think for yourself. This future is not mine, it is yours. Design it as you wish. Thank you very much.